Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Mark Gonneau is a real estate investor that started at 24 years old. He currently owns about 264 units spread over 42 properties, and he's got a private REIT that focuses on boutique hotels. They use a lot of technology to reduce their expenses and increase their income. So on this episode, we talked about how he started off as a chiropractor and how he transitioned to real estate full time. He took a lot of time off to figure out what he wanted to do. He met his business partner, David, as part of, I guess his property manager thought that they'd be a good fit together. So we talked a little bit about what to look for in a business partner in order to scale your business and to get to that next level. And we talked a lot about his boutique hotel business and how he's able to use technology to eliminate certain staff, to make check-ins easier, to basically reduce his expenses and improve the net operating income of the building. So I think there's going to be some good stuff in here for you, just if you're a general real estate investor or if you are thinking about getting into the short-term rental business. We did touch on Airbnbs a little bit as well. So there you go. Hope you'll enjoy the episode. Just make sure to share this with a friend or family member, someone who might benefit from the information. And please do leave us a 5-star review if you appreciate the content that we're providing. That's greatly appreciated for all the people that are listening and that have been supporting the show. And finally, if you want to download some cool reports, we do offer some freebies that you can get from our website. So if you go to www.welloff.ca/podcast, there's a bunch of stuff for you to get for free. So there you go. I'm here with Mark. Mark's first time we actually sit down. We've got a lot of mutual friends. I like to start off by asking about your childhood. So you just want to tell me about where you grew up, a couple things you remember.
I grew up in Muskoka, which is a very interesting place to grow up. I grew up in what I refer to as the thriving metropolis of Glen Orchard. It had a full-time population of about 87 people, 5 in my family, 6 of my uncles next door. Yeah. As I say, I can name everybody for you and tell you how they're related.
Cool. Any memories specifically growing up there?
Well, it's a really interesting place to grow up because you have the local population, which is quite small, and for the most part, you then have the summer population, which is significantly larger, but also there's a massive difference in terms of income and net worth and stuff. So you've got Canada's elite, sort of like the top 0.01% have cottages up in Muskoka, and then you have us locals who work there, yeah, and build the cottages and look after the cottages and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what were the main jobs? Like, I know you kind of just touched on it now, but what would people do there in general?
Well, I mean, for a lot of people, it's either building the cottages, renovating the cottages, maintaining the cottages, or so there's a lot of work around that, and then just service industries. But it's also obviously super seasonal. I mean, my dad would work from May till October. And you work like crazy from May to October, but then from October to May, you didn't really work much at all.
Yep. So what did he do during that time?
He played hockey.
Yeah.
and a lot of hockey.
Yeah. Cool. How does this guy from a small, population of 87 people, like you said, end up doing on the journey that you're on?
I have no idea. I mean, the very first time that I went to look at real estate as an investment, my brother had to drive because I wasn't old enough to have a driver's license. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm obviously a little older than you. So at the time, there was no internet, there was no MLS. It was the books that would come to the realtor's office every Thursday. And so, I mean, imagine a 16 and a 17-year-old walking into your office wanting to buy property. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we had a guy that tossed us the last week's book type of thing that was technically out of date, and we went and drove around and looked at a few things. We quickly realized that while we had planned to pool our money together, my brother and I, we wouldn't be able to buy an actual house. We'd only be able to buy like a bush lot. Mm-hmm. And we realized that wouldn't actually really make us a lot of money.
You were looking to buy cash, or you wanted a mortgage?
Well, no, we knew nothing about mortgages. We just, I mean, we pulled our money together. We might have had 10 grand between the two of us. We might have been able to buy a bush lot back then, sort of thing. So that was the first time I went looking at real estate. And then we shelved that for a little while. And then when I was in university, my brother and I revisited the idea about buying something, and we looked at a couple of different condos, but the math didn't quite make sense. And then finally, when I was, it was my roommate and I would have been in first year of my second program, my second degree, and I started chatting with my roommate at the time, who was a few years older than me, and we decided, sure, let's go look at some houses. So we went out and bought a house that first year, and I remember we get home from school, there's a message on the answer machine from the realtor saying, hey, there's a great house that came up, why don't we go take a look at it? We booked the showing that night, we went and took a look at it, and it seemed to work perfect. And so we get home, and Craig and I were talking about it, and the realtor called and said, what do you think? We said, hey, it's kind of cool. She says, well, they're doing offers tonight. I need to know sort of right now if you want to put in an offer, because I can delay them by half an hour to give us time to write it up. So we decided, sure, why not? Let's jump in. And later, a few hours later that night, we got the call from the realtor saying we got the house. And I remember walking out to Craig and saying, hey, we got the house. And he kind of looked back at me like a deer in the headlights. And sort of like, we got the house. Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, now what? Weird part of the story, that next morning I was on a plane to the Bahamas as part of an award that I won for a job that I was working at the time, where they took us down to the Bahamas. So Craig was then had to go look after finding a mortgage and doing a home inspection while I'm in the Bahamas. And I remember calling my dad from the Bahamas saying like, hey Dad, great news, we bought a house. I was like, hey, that's great. And I said, so all I need is for you to co-sign on the mortgage. My dad says, I'm not doing that. And of course, as any other young kid, I mean, I'd call myself a young kid at the time. I was 26. Yeah. My answer is like, well, Craig's dad's co-signing. And my dad's like, well, that's good for Craig. He says, but I've never been in debt in my life. I've never had a mortgage, and I'm not going to.
Right.
And I said, but we already bought the house. My dad says, well, you should have thought about this sooner.
So you were firm. You had no conditions on this.
We had a financing condition, yeah. But without co-signers, we had no way of getting the mortgage.
Right.
So I called up my brother, who's a year and a half older than me, and he was out working as an engineer, and called him up and said like, hey, do you want to be partners on the house? And he said, sure. So it took him 6 months to even see the house, but he said, sure. So we put him down on the application, and then he helped us qualify for the mortgage. Craig, my brother, and I, we each threw in 10 grand, and that gave us a down payment on the house. Of course, we're like CMHC 95% leverage sort of thing. Yep. That after we closed, my dad did come down and helped us for that weekend get started building what would have been an illegal basement apartment. Craig and I lived in the basement, and we figured we had like 3 bedrooms upstairs. We figured we'd have 3 classmates come. We had 3 years left in our degree. They'd come, they'd stay the full 3 years, and then we'd sell it when we graduate. We had, I think, 16 people through that house in those 3 years, because of course students are just so random. Yeah. We had sort of like people going through the house every year, but ultimately, we sold it when we graduated, and then I went and played in the real world for a little bit. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. So you're 26, you said, when you bought your first place, roughly? Yep, 26.
26, you graduate a few years later.
Yep.
Most of us will pick up a job after we graduate. Not many of us know right away we want to be real estate investors, right?
Right.
So what happened from that point?
Well, like I said, I went and played in the real world, paid off some student loans, and then started investing really with my brother.
What was your job?
I was a chiropractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, technically still am.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so there's actually been other people that I've spoken to that are kind of in the medical field of some sort, and they end up investing. They basically say that when you're in that field, no one really teaches you about investing. A lot of people just end up working and then they get sort of like problems with their hands or with whatever, and eventually they can't practice anymore. What was the turning point for you that made you realize, I don't want to be doing this full time anymore. Instead, I want to go into investing and spending more time on that?
There wasn't really a turning point. It's just, for whatever reason, just the way I'm wired. I joke that I read more business books during my education than I read medical books. It's just sort of what I did. So like I said, I went and played in the real world and then paid off some student loans. And then once I had some cash available, then my brother and I, we started investing together. And first thing we bought was a bunch of townhomes in Aurelia. And then from there, we went and bought a bunch of student rentals in Barrie and some townhomes in Barrie. And we did a bunch of investing together.
Cool. And so fast forward, I don't want to spend like too much time on the earlier stuff that you did, but let's fast forward to today. I was just reading over kind of some of the notes, but you have 264 units roughly. Ish.
Give or take.
It always changes. You're always selling something, buying something. So 42 properties again, rough. Those are rough numbers.
Yep.
That's a huge growth from where you started out with just the one property. What are you focusing on today?
So right now what we're focusing on is actually boutique hotels, which is something totally different than what most people are doing these days. We're fairly unique in diving into the boutique hotel space.
Yeah, tell us about that a little bit. How did you decide that that's the space you want to be in?
So, I mean, with the investing, like I said, I mean, my brother and I did a bunch, and we were doing sort of the normal ramp up of like single family to duplexes to small multifamily. Actually, I took a decade ago, when I sold my clinics, I took 6 years off. I kind of retired and did a little bit of nothing, and then got put together with my current partner David. It was a mutual property manager that said we should get in touch. And admittedly, I resisted working with him for the first couple of years, but finally decided he wore me down, I guess, and we decided to work together. And we started out doing more multifamily value-add projects, but we were noticing that like cap rates were just getting compressed substantially, and the valuations were going through the roof. And it was just getting harder and harder to make multifamily make sense. It was becoming more and more speculation. So we started looking at different alternatives, and we started looking first geographically. We looked at different areas to invest in. That's what led Dave. He went out to Quebec to look for multifamily in Montreal. And what was interesting for him was he didn't particularly care for the multifamily market in Montreal. It wasn't that much different than the multifamily market we're used to here in Ontario.
It's probably worse.
Yeah, give or take. But what caught his eye was actually the hotel that he stayed in when he was there, which he talks about how when he was coming back to Toronto, he was thinking about like, how could I stay at such a great hotel that was like newly renovated, that was in a great location, that was so reasonably priced. And he realized that it was completely automated. It had no front desk. Everything was done through his phone. And he thought this was kind of cool. So we went out and like he came back, he told me about it, and we thought it was cool. So we tracked down the owner of that hotel and went and met up with the owner of that hotel to see what it was that he was doing and how everything was working. And it seemed like a great business plan.
Awesome. There's a lot to dive into here, but I want to just go back a little bit, talk about your partner, David. First of all, so you said a property manager connected the two of you?
Yep.
And that property manager just felt like you guys would be, good business partners?
Yeah, I mean, we're both, like he's a lot younger than me. Like he's about 15 years younger than me, but he was a young guy that was doing a lot of the same things that I was doing, and she just thought we should meet. Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing for anyone listening that's looking to scale and get to the next level. It's finding the right people to work with. So how were you able to determine that David would be a good person for you to work with, to be able to, start a REIT with and do all these things?
I mean, it's the same as anything else. We would just meet up and chat and talk, and we started with one project, and that seemed to go well, and then so we decided to do another project, and that seemed to go well, so we just continued on.
Yeah.
We have sort of complementary skill sets. We're very different in terms of he's much more the extrovert. I'm very much an introvert. I can't believe I'm actually here doing a podcast, to be perfectly honest. So we have different strengths and weaknesses that complement each other, and it's interesting because I'm older and I've got a family, I've got kids and stuff like that. Whereas he's younger and he's single, he doesn't have dependents. He's more aggressive, which is fine because he pushes me. But then it's not that I'm more aggressive, but I'd like to say I have more experience, and I've sort of been there, done that. So I can sort of, he's the gas, I'm the brakes in one aspect.
You've been burned a few times. So.
Well, not just been burned, but I mean, I've seen things, and I've done things. But at the same time, having somebody that's super keen and super eager. I mean, it's not that he's like aggressive from a standpoint of being irresponsible. It's just, I mean, I was the same way when I was his age. When I was first investing, I used to joke about like, what's my worst case scenario? I go completely bankrupt and I end up couch surfing for a little bit until I make enough money to be able to afford a first and last month's rent. Yeah. And you say, well, that doesn't put me that much further behind half my friends.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But it's a little different when you have kids and you have a wife, right? You can't really take those chances anymore. Not the same way.
Yeah, of course. So there is sort of like a good complementary skill set that we have.
Can we dive into that skill set? I know I'm kind of going in to detail here, but I just want to know, because often when you do meet other investors, we all have kind of a similar skill set. Most people are used to managing their projects and hiring contractors and doing all this sort of same things. Mm-hmm. When you come across somebody who has complementary skill sets, what are you referring to exactly?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, on one hand, so Dave has a history of he was an accountant in film and television. So he's really good with detailed numbers, whereas I'm a much more big picture guy. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, he's also a visionary type of person that's always thinking 3, 5, 10 years into the future, whereas I'm much more practical here and now. Yeah. So it's interesting how we're both simultaneously like big picture and little picture, but in different ways.
Okay, so what are the tasks that you're responsible for as part of, I guess, like a general partner? What would you be taking on versus David?
There is, at this point, still a ton of overlap and a ton of just doing whatever needs to be done to get the project done. We don't have specific defined roles of you're doing this, I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. That being said, I mean, right now, because I mean, I live in Toronto, he lives in Toronto, but he being single is more mobile. He's out in Montreal right now, working on one of our projects, whereas I'm here in Toronto looking after, well, doing the podcast, but also working with lawyers on a refinance that we're doing, working with bankers on another refinance that we're doing, and dealing with the accountants for getting investor reports and taxes and stuff like that. So I'm doing a bunch of the day-to-day plotting along that I can do here, and he being more mobile, he's out in Montreal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it sounds like it sounds like you both kind of raise capital. It's not like one person's responsible for that. Right. Like you said, your tasks kind of overlap, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's go back to this Montreal hotel. You meet with this owner. Mm-hmm. Does he just share everything with you, or is he keeping everything kind of as a secret?
So we did speak a bunch and talk about what it is that, like what needs to be done and how he did things. We did actually talk about going into business together, the three of us. But ultimately that didn't work out. So Dave and I just decided to go about it on our own.
Okay. Was he open? Like the owner of that hotel, was he open to sharing things with you?
Yes and no. He shared some things, but other things certainly he kept close to his chest.
Okay. And what did you apply? And did that spark you wanting to go and buy a hotel right away in Toronto or somewhere in the area? Or
So we actually focused initially on the Quebec market for a few reasons. Like when it comes to Toronto, like boutique hotels in Toronto, as I joke, like when people say like, why is it that you don't have any properties in Toronto? And I say, well, name me a hotel in Toronto that isn't owned by a Marriott or a Delta or a Hilton or something like that. They're all, for the most part, large corporate hotels. There aren't a lot of boutique hotels. Whereas in Quebec, with its European heritage, it has tons and tons of boutique Mon-Pa owned and operated 30, 40 unit hotels. So certainly there's the availability of product in Quebec that just doesn't exist here in Toronto. Also, like other things that drivers that took us out to the Quebec market was the price. The cost per unit in Montreal's in Quebec City where we're operating is significantly less than out here in Toronto or in other places, but the income isn't. Another thing is Quebec City and Montreal, they're top two tourism destinations in Canada, or like they're known as some of the top tourism destinations. They get great revenue. So we've got great revenue, but a lot less cost per door. So our cap rates are fantastic out there that we're able to acquire at.
Can you give us some examples of cap rates?
I mean, we're buying anywhere from like 8 to 11 caps. And
what would be a comparable hotel in Toronto? What would that roughly go for?
Oh, Toronto, half. Yeah. But I mean, we're downtown Montreal. Like this is one of the things. Like we're not buying the little motels on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this is prime real estate in downtown Montreal that we're buying, and that's one of the key things that we look for. Is like anything else, is the location.
Yeah. So you're buying this 30, 40 unit a hotel, like you said. It was owned by somebody probably for many years, a family-run business. You get in there, I'm sure they have these more traditional systems. What are you doing in there to modernize the place?
Yeah, like our target property, like first and foremost, has to be in a great location. Has to have, I mean, very similar to the multifamily properties that we buy. So a great location, great bones, like structurally sound, mechanically sound, but cosmetically dated and not run or managed as effectively as it could be. So that's what we're looking for. Our target from a seller profile is the Mon-Pa owner-operated, the ones that they do it all themselves. They're the ones where they're sitting behind the front desk. They're the ones that are doing the maintenance work. Heck, they're the ones doing the cleaning half the time. They're looking for an exit. The kids want absolutely nothing to do with the business because they've seen mom and dad never take a day off in a decade and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the kids don't want anything to do with it. The owners want to leave. We come in there and we offer an exit to them, which means we're working with willing buyers, which is another sort of breath of fresh air. Willing sellers, I mean, which is another breath of fresh air compared to multifamily, where in a lot of times, I mean, especially sort of in and around COVID, when prices were just going through the roof and everything was escalating as much as it was, where the sellers of multifamily were standing there taking bids, and we're going in at a completely different type of negotiation. So that's really what we're looking for. And then when we go in, very first thing we do is we eliminate the front desk staff, but we replace that with technology and automation. So we bring in systems so that everything is done through your phone. So you walk up to the front door, the phone unlocks the front door of the hotel. It can guide you to your room, and it unlocks the front door of your door of your room.
Is it like? Is there a QR code that somebody scans or something?
So there's a few different ways that you can do it. You can do it where it's actually like physically punching in codes, but you can also do it as an NFC type of like hold your phone up towards the lock and it'll unlock it. And this is not something that we're the only ones doing. I mean, a lot of the big players are also doing this. I mean, if I went to my son's hockey tournament a month ago and we stayed at a Hilton, and the Hilton had it where I could use my phone to unlock the door. It's the same system.
Do you need to download a specific app to do that, or?
Yes. Yeah, with Hilton, yeah. So it's the same systems that the big players are using. It's just we're bringing them down to a boutique hotel, to the mom and pop operators that haven't adopted this new technology.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so you basically fire, well, to put it bluntly.
Usually they're not staff. Usually they're the owners that are leaving. The owners,
yeah.
So,
okay,
we're not necessarily firing people. We're just,
sure.
we're just getting rid of. So, but it's also something that like you picture yourself, like you come off a plane, you take the Uber, the whatever over to the hotel. The last thing you want to do is stand in line and wait for a key. You just want to get to your room.
Sure. Yeah. So, sometimes the waits can be pretty long.
So so this is something that like when we say we're using technology and automations to replace staffing, we still need to provide great customer service to the guest, and we still need to provide a great experience. So that's like I said, you just want to get to your room. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to sign things and show your ID and credit cards and all that sort of stuff. That's all taken care of beforehand.
Right.
You just walk in, go straight into your room.
Yeah. And then would you have staff there, like a supervisor in case somebody needs something, or how does that work?
So you always need to have local staff in place when it comes to cleaning and maintenance, and people that can look after emergency type stuff. But when it comes to guest questions and guest communications, we actually use a centralized system for that. So all the communication is done phone, text, email, to a central location, and then they provide the answers.
Okay.
And can help direct people. And if it's something that can be done again,
like, where's the ice machine? So then they would call or text a number, and then they would say it's on the third floor or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I need new I'm looking for more pillows, or I'm looking for a reservation for like restaurant stuff like that.
Yeah,
that can all be done, and that also allows us to scale because you can have one central location look after multiple hotels, multiple locations.
Any other tech that you're using that's kind of innovative or maybe a little different?
Well, one of the big things that we're using is AI pricing strategies. And again, this is something that the big players are using, but we're just bringing into the boutique space. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, there are lots of mom operators that have like 4 or 5 different pricing strategies in terms of like, okay, there's the winter price is $79 a night. Mm-hmm. The summer price during the weekday is $99 a night. It's $129 on a weekend and $149 on a long weekend, sort of thing. But it's very static pricing. Whereas what we use is like it's dynamic pricing, but it's with like AI driven models. That same thing as booking airfares, where the price is constantly changing depending on the supply and demand, depending on the traffic. Mm-hmm. And what we found is just the elimination of the front desk and the automations that we're doing there, and bringing in the AI pricing strategy, we're reducing our expenses quite significantly and increasing our revenue. So for instance, the last property that we bought in Quebec City, we haven't even done the renovations yet. All we did was remove the front desk staff, put in the technology to allow us to remove the front desk staff. So there is like an upfront capital cost for the technology, but we put in the technology, remove the front desk staff, put in the AI pricing strategies, and we were able to increase the income so much that the appraised value when we bought it was $2 million. A year and a half later, after we'd done through it like 1 year with the new systems in place, we were appraised at $3.45 million.
What was the cost to put in the systems?
Cost to put in the system is a few $100,000.
Yeah.
So this is something that, like I said, most mom-and-pop owner-operators don't necessarily have the money to invest into the business, or especially if they're sort of in the twilight of their careers, they're not wanting to invest that type of money into the properties.
Yeah. Why is it so much? Like, I'm having a hard time understanding why it would cost a couple $100,000 to basically make automated check-ins and that sort of thing.
Well, there's the physical stuff, which is like obviously locks and internet access points and all that sort of stuff, which certainly has a cost to it, and it's a cost depending on the size and the layout of the property. Then it of course is the actual the technology that we use, the systems that we use, where the cost to be using those systems is a significant upfront cost to be able to license the software.
Okay. So are you changing the locks on all of the exterior doors and interior doors as well?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that they're all like NFC enabled, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Right. So you'd walk up to a hotel, you scan your phone, let's say in this example, NFC opens up the door, you go right to your room, NFC again, the door opens, and that's it.
Well, but the technology allows us to do far more too, and we're excited about what the technology is able to do, even though we're just scratching the surface of what it's able to do. And to be perfectly honest, it gets a little scary sometimes, or creepy, I guess, in terms of what is out there in the public realm that technology has the ability to know about you. Yeah. So it's, for instance, when you book the property, if we wanted to, and like I said, we haven't brought this in yet, but the software that we use, when they demonstrate it to us, they tell us the capabilities that it has. So we know that it can do this, where it can scrape, once you put in your name when you book the room, it can start doing a scrape of the internet to find out everything that's online publicly about you, and knows that, hey, it's your anniversary this weekend, even though you haven't told us it's your anniversary. So then it can automatically trigger an email to you saying, hey, I've noticed it's your anniversary this weekend. Would you like to have flowers and a bottle of wine in your room when you get there?
I would not be happy getting that.
It can be a little creepy, and we haven't done that, but the technology is there. And the thing is, you put that information out into the public realm. You like it's scraping Facebook, it's scraping Instagram. It can do all that. So it can do things like that. You open up your room and the TV turns on and says, "Hey George, welcome to Montreal. It's 14 degrees, but there's a chance of rain today. You might want to bring an umbrella." But it may also know that you're a fan of Ethiopian food. Mm-hmm. Because again, you took pictures of the meal that you ate at the Ethiopian restaurant and posted it to Instagram.
Yep.
And then so it said, by the way, there's a great Ethiopian restaurant located at this place. Would you like us to make a reservation for you?
What if your profile's private though? Do you know if that?
Well, it's only scraping what's publicly available.
Yeah.
It's whatever you've put out there. But it's just sort of talking about when it comes to us monetizing and increasing the revenue. And because, at the end of the day, everything we do is what generates a better return for our investors. Mm-hmm. And what can generate a greater return for investors is decreasing expenses and increasing revenue. So we know that decreasing expenses happens through sort of the reduction of the front desk staff and some of that sort of stuff that we do. We also do things when it comes to utilities, like we can shut off utilities so that as soon as you leave the room, lights go out, heat goes out, or air conditioning goes out, stuff like that, which again isn't new. When I go stay somewhere in the Caribbean, when you go into those big hotels in the Caribbean, if you're not in the room, the air conditioning shuts off to conserve electricity. Well, we can use those same systems and again put them into smaller boutique hotels where normally they're not being used.
Sure.
But it's also increasing revenue because we can now do affiliates. So if we know that you like skiing and you come to Montreal, then we can partner with ski tour groups that are for Mont Tremblant as an example. We're in Quebec out in the Eastern Townships. And so we know that you're a skier. So we can do affiliate marketing and we can say, hey, George, you can go to Montreal and go skiing, or restaurants or fitness facilities, all sorts of things we can do affiliates with. Mm-hmm. Everything in the room, we refer to it as shoppable stays. Hey, did you have a great sleep? Yeah, this mattress was incredible. Cool. Do you want to have one delivered to your door? It'll arrive by the time you get home. And we can take an affiliate cut on that.
Right.
So there's the technology allows us to bring in a lot of additional revenue, but just by providing services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's seems like the technology is a big factor here in your success and your ability to increase income, decrease expenses. Are you using any other tech, or is that kind of the majority of it there? What we just discussed.
So that's the majority in terms of what you see. The other thing that we really do is we renovate these units. As I talked about, we look for things that are cosmetically dated. And again, just like multifamily value add, we go in, we renovate the units so that they look better. And when they look better, then you earn more revenue. But one of the other things that we do is we add kitchens to the units. And when we do that for a few reasons. One, it drives revenue, because what we found is people pay on average about 10 to 15% more for a room with a kitchen than one without. And I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I have young kids. So if I go into a hotel and if I go to book a hotel and I see that it's got a little kitchen there, then I will preferentially book that, because kids generally don't do 3 meals a day at a restaurant. But it's not even just with kids. I mean, by having the kitchens, it allows you to stay longer, because you're just spending your money on the room as opposed to spending money on restaurants or room service. Having the kitchens then opens up a new demographic. It opens up somebody from an extended stay traveler. So what I mean by an extended stay traveler is, my brother-in-law, he is a database architect, whatever that is, I have no idea. But he works on a laptop all day long. He also is a really avid snowboarder. So he will go out to Whistler every year and spend a month out in Whistler. And he's still working. He's working from home. But he goes out and he takes advantage, of course, of the 3-hour time difference. So he gets up early, he does a full work day, and then he's done by 2:00 in the afternoon, and he goes snowboarding for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
He's spending a month out there. He's not going to stay at a hotel. Like, if you're staying for a long period of time, you don't want to stay in a place where you have to have room service 3 meals a day or go to a restaurant 3 meals a day. It's going to torch your budget. You're going to burn all your money through that. And also, sometimes it's just nice to wake up and pour yourself a bowl of cereal in the morning. So when we renovate to add kitchens, that increases our revenue. It increases our length of stay, which decreases our expenses, because typically cleaning only happens when you leave, when there's the guest turnover. So it reduces our cleaning cost. It also reduces just general wear and tear, because you don't have suitcases going up and down as often when people are staying for a longer period of time. It fills out our vacancy in the off season. So Canada, of course, you have high season in the summer and low season in the winter. High season, you're booked pretty much solid the whole time. It's in the low season when you have to make sure that you manage your budget, because you're not going to have as many bookings. By having the kitchens and being appealing to that extended stay traveler, somebody who's coming to work for a week or a month, that keeps our occupancy much higher. So of course that increases our revenue.
Sure.
And the thing that I really, really like, though, is when I renovate these and I add kitchens, now I have something that has the license for a hotel, but looks and feels like a bachelor apartment, like a studio apartment. So fully renovated, it's got a great kitchen. So when I talk about a kitchen, a lot of people think, okay, you're putting a kitchen in a hotel, it must be just like a little mini bar fridge and a microwave. I'm like, no, we've designed these super compact, sleek European kitchens that in 6 linear feet, I can have a fridge, a 2-burner cooktop.
Okay.
I have a 24-inch oven. I have a 24-inch over-the-range microwave. I have a sink, and I have a dishwasher.
Really? Within 6 feet?
Within 6 linear feet.
So that's 72 inches.
Yep.
You have 24 for the stove, right? 24 for the dishwasher. So you're at 48. And then what else did you say?
You have a fridge.
Yeah.
You have a sink, and you have a cooktop, 2-burner cooktop.
Yeah.
And you have a microwave.
So you'd only have 24 inches left after your stove and...
So if you think about it in like you're doing in 2-foot chunks.
Yeah.
So if you have a 2-foot for fridge.
Yeah.
2 foot for it's a dishwasher drawer, single dishwasher drawer, where we put the sink above it. So 2 feet is fridge.
Yeah.
2 feet is dishwasher and sink, and then 2 feet is an oven with 200 cooktop above it with a 24-inch microwave OTR microwave.
Are these all custom built? Yep. Because I can't imagine. Like I don't think you can get that just kind of from the store, right?
Yeah, these are all custom built.
Yeah.
And then if we have 8 linear feet, then I can either add in laundry.
Yep.
Or I can just make them more countertop and a little bit larger, so it's a full 18-inch dishwasher. It's slightly larger fridge.
So the dishwasher in that example that you said with the sink above it, is it like a short dishwasher? Is it a custom dishwasher or like a kind of a...
It's a dishwasher drawer.
Special ordered dishwasher or what?
No, it's a dishwasher drawer.
Okay. So you can just buy that from any appliance?
Yeah, there's only a couple manufacturers that make them.
Yeah.
But you can buy them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. So when I put in the kitchens and I've got something that has a license to allow me to rent by the night, but I have something that looks and feels like an apartment. Because these kitchens, I mean, you can cook Christmas dinner in them. You've got everything you need. I mean, most people aren't going to, but it's got the capability to do it. So now I can rent by the day because I've got the hotel license, but there's nothing that stops me from renting by the week or by the month or longer. So what that does is it gives me flexibility of operations. So I can operate as a hotel, but for instance, our locations in Montreal are 10 minutes away from McGill and 5 minutes away from UQAM. So we could operate as a student rental from September to May during the low season and take advantage of the consistency of the rent from a long-term rental, and then operate as a hotel during the high season, which typically is when students don't want to be there anyways. I've got a friend of mine who used to work with building seniors' homes, and he looks at these and says, these are great for independent seniors living, because there's so many people out there that are like single seniors, like either they didn't get married in the first place, or they're divorced or widowed or whatever the situation was. They're living on a pension, or even worse, they're living on CPP and OAS. So they've got a very fixed income. Well, we're able to offer a completely self-contained unit that has everything they possibly need. It's one price that includes your utilities and your internet and everything. And so he says these are great for independent seniors living. So I've got flexibility of operations. If I'm able to generate more revenue, like net revenue as a hotel, I can operate it as a hotel. But if it works better as an apartment, I can rent it as an apartment. If it works better as a student rental, I can rent it as a student rental. Even when it comes time to exit, if it's time to sell these properties, I can run the math and say, okay, well, is it worth more as a hotel, or is it worth more as an apartment building, or is it worth more as a student rental? And I can sell it as that asset class.
Yeah.
So this flexibility of operations is something I love, because I mean, I'm not an aggressive real estate investor. I'm very conservative. So I love having this flexibility. To me, this is downside protection. I mean, worst case scenario, we have another pandemic or planes come crashing into tall buildings in New York again. They shut down tourism. If I'm just a hotel, then I'm in trouble. And a lot of them were in COVID. However, if I'm a hotel that can operate as a student rental, or can operate as an independent seniors living facility, or can operate just as a regular multifamily, just like a regular apartment building, I've got all this flexibility. So I've got downside protection.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's what I love about this.
Yeah. Before we started recording, also you had touched a little bit about doing Airbnb right. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, the main thing is, as we're seeing, is like homes were meant to live in, not to rent out as a hotel, and not to be a ghost hotel sort of thing, as people refer to it. So everybody sort of innately understands that if you're renting something out by the night as a short-term rental, you can make more money than if you're renting it out by the month. The other big advantage is, when you're, especially in Ontario, is if you're renting something as a short-term rental, it doesn't fall under landlord-tenant legislation. It falls under the Innkeepers Act, and therefore you don't have to deal with the landlord-tenant board, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is completely broken in Ontario. So Completely forgot where I was going.
That happens sometimes.
That happens. Just kidding. But sorry, what was the question again?
No, I forgot. No, it was about doing Airbnbs right.
Oh, right. Yeah. So because we have the housing shortage right now, we've got everybody is talking about the housing shortage, the housing crisis, stuff like that. You hear people talking about renovictions, that when you have people doing multifamily value add and they're renovating units and they're kicking out little grandmas and all that sort of stuff. We don't want to do that. We don't have to do it because we're in a hotel, not a multifamily building.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the benefits that we like as well. But we've seen, of course, with this, that all sorts of municipalities, all sorts of provinces, even the federal government, are all restricting Airbnb. So whether it's the Airbnb ban in Toronto, whether it's BC, the entire province of BC now regulating Airbnbs, or whether it's Revenue Canada talking about if you are operating an Airbnb, now you can no longer deduct your expenses. And the interesting thing with Revenue Canada is most municipalities defined like the difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental as being 28 days or 30 days. Revenue Canada defined it as 90 days. Mm-hmm. So even if you're renting something for 30-day cycles, Revenue Canada will still say that is a short-term rental, not a long-term rental. Mm-hmm. So throughout all of this, it's, okay, let's leave housing for people to live in. And let's not try to put a bunch of people, take a bunch of condos and put Airbnbs in them. Let's not take a bunch of cottages and put Airbnbs in them and annoy all the rest of the cottagers on the lake because people come up and party in the Airbnbs and get rid of all the peace and quiet that people were paying all that money for the cottage.
Yeah.
Let's keep people in hotels. And so that's sort of what I mean by doing Airbnb right, is you can make a lot of money investing in hotels. And that's what we're doing for our investors. So rather than buying a condo and having the risk that the municipality shuts you down, like what happened in Toronto in 2020, or whether it's you bought something up in Muskoka and they're all getting banned up there or licensed up there. You have something out in BC where now the entire province of BC is taking the ability to do short-term rentals away. So let's invest where the short-term rentals where they're actually designed to be, which is in a hotel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. We talked a little bit about your journey. We talked about the hotels and the tech that you're applying, and we talked a little bit about Airbnbs. Is there anything else you feel like we should touch on that we may not have?
I mean, I could go all day talking about real estate. I mean, yeah. I've done this for 25 plus years. I've done just about everything. I mean, we talked about beforehand where, I mean, I've done right from single family homes to multifamilies to hotels. Mm-hmm. I've been an investor both, and I've done private lending as a borrower. I've done private lending as the investor. Yeah. I mean, I've done lots of stuff. So yeah. I can talk real estate all day.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people that come on the show, like we're all passionate, right? That's why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. So maybe just to finish things off, do you feel like, or sorry, what services are you offering, and then what would be the best way to connect with you?
So, I mean, for me, one of the things we haven't really talked about too much was, yes, we started up a REIT, private REIT. It's called Honeytree. It's the Honeytree Real Estate Trust. This is what allows investors to invest with us. And I guess we haven't talked about this a little bit, is investing properly as well. And there's lots of people out there that are putting out stuff on Facebook and Instagram and in any other form of media they can, saying, come invest with me. And they're, for the most part, not doing things properly. They're not regulated by the Securities Commission. What they're doing can get them shut down by the Securities Commission. So we, of course, wanted to do things right. So we went through and we started up a mutual fund trust. We now can take investors from anywhere across Canada and actually internationally as well. You can invest with your RSPs, TFSAs, all that sort of stuff. And invest knowing that you're investing with a company that is in a regulated space. There's exempt market dealers in place. There's licensed dealing representatives in place. The Securities Commission is in place, and we're monitored by all of those and fall under all of those, so that you can invest with confidence knowing that we're doing things right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, it's like you said, there's a lot of that sort of advertising on social media sometimes where I don't know if people have gotten in trouble, like no one I know has been in trouble, but I'm sure it's happened.
I know a number who have.
Yeah. So it's always good to be careful. And I think you've been very good today, like, not sharing things you're probably not supposed to share. So great job on that. And connecting with you. What's the best way?
So I'm sure you'll post up email, phone number, Instagram, all that sort of stuff as far as the show notes. But Honey Tree Grow is the name of the company. The real estate trust, or the REIT, is called Honey Tree Real Estate Trust. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, all the
Do you respond
places.
to that, or you have somebody that responds to the Instagram page?
I respond.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave and I will respond if somebody DMs us. We'll certainly reach out and respond to them.
Cool. Mark, I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing all this, and hopefully people got some good tips on, the hotel business, and I'm sure they'll get in touch with you if they're interested. Before we end things, I just want to say, if you guys enjoyed the episode, please make sure to leave us a review, share this with a friend or family member. Let's get the word out there so that more people know about investing in real estate and the different ways that you could do it. So again, Mark, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.